This was a female pharaoh who ruled Egypt with such an iron fist that she declared herself a god. And she was so desperate to stay in power, she even asked a foreign king to let her marry his son. Meet Nefertiti, one of the most powerful and controversial figures in ancient history. Her reign brought radical religious changes and left a legacy that has puzzled historians for centuries. This is the most hated female pharaoh, Nefertiti. Here's everything you need to know about her incredible and tumultuous life. If you were living in ancient Egypt during the 14th century BC, the sun would be blazing down, the Nile flowing endlessly, and towering pyramids dominating the landscape. But amidst all this grandeur, Egypt was going through some radical changes under the rule of Pharaoh Akhenaten. His great royal wife, Nefertiti, isn't just any queen. She was a powerful person who changed things big time. But what did she do to earn such a notorious reputation? Let's find out. Nefertiti's story begins with a bit of mystery. She was born around 1370 BC, but no one really knows who her parents were. One popular theory is that she was the daughter of Ai, a top advisor who later became pharaoh after Tutankhamun. But here's the catch. Neither Ai nor his wife Te are ever clearly referred to as her parents. Te's only connection to Nefertiti is as her nurse. Kinda weird, right? Another theory says she was the daughter of Amenhotep III, which would make her Akhenaten's full sister. But Nefertiti never held the titles typically given to a pharaoh's daughter. The most recent theory suggests that Nefertiti was actually a Mitanni princess named Tatukipa. This is partly because of her name. The beautiful woman has come, hinting she might have been from somewhere else. So here's where things get interesting. Nefertiti marries Prince Amenhotep IV when she's just 15. A few years later, he becomes pharaoh and changes his name to Akhenaten. Despite having multiple wives, Akhenaten clearly had a special bond with Nefertiti. They had 6 daughters together: Meritaten, Meketaten, Akhesemun, Neferneferuaten Tasherit, Neferneferer, and Setapenir, but no sons. Nefertiti wasn't just a pretty face. She held many titles like Hereditary Princess, Great of Praises, and Lady of Grace. But the most significant one was High Priestess of Aten. This wasn't just any title. It showed her deep involvement in the religious changes happening in Egypt. Now, Akhenaten and Nefertiti weren't your average royal couple. They decided to transform things religiously. Instead of worshiping a whole bunch of gods, they promoted the worship of just one, Aten, the sun disk. Imagine that. A culture with a rich pantheon of gods being told to focus on one deity. It was revolutionary. Aten was represented as a solar disk with rays ending in little hands, often depicted touching the royal family. And this wasn't entirely new. Aten had been worshipped before, but Akhenaten and Nefertiti took it to another level. They declared Aten not just the supreme god, but the only god. Temples of Amun were destroyed and images of other gods were banned. And it didn't stop there. Akhenaten and Nefertiti said they were Aten's only messengers, effectively sidelining the priests and other religious leaders. This was a huge power shift and a major threat to the traditional way of life in Egypt. Many priests of Amun hid texts and artifacts to save them from destruction. Towards the end of his reign, Akhenaten went as far as to declare himself and Nefertiti as actual gods, demanding worship. Nefertiti was eventually elevated to the position of co-pharaoh and then sole pharaoh after Akhenaten's death. Changing her name to Neferneferuaten, meaning beautiful is the beauty of Aten. Nefertiti holds the distinction of being the second New Kingdom female pharaoh after Hatshepsut, and only one of 7 women to ever become pharaoh during ancient Egypt's 3,000-year history. But she wasn't just any ruler. She was powerful and not keen on stepping down. When Akhenaten died, Nefertiti didn't hand over the throne to her 9-year-old stepson, Tutankhamun, right away. Instead, she wrote to the king of the Hittites, Suppiluliuma I, in a desperate move. "My husband has died and I have no son. They say about you that you have many sons. You might give me one of your sons to become my husband. I would not wish to take one of my subjects as a husband. I am afraid." Now, this was pretty unprecedented because Egyptian royal women didn't marry foreign royalty. Suppiluliuma sent his son, Prince Zananza, but the marriage never happened because the prince was assassinated on his way to Egypt. Some think this was a desperate act seen as treason, leading to her possible murder as soon as she disappeared from the historical record. So what happened after Nefertiti vanished? Well, Tutankhamun eventually took the throne, guided by his advisors, who convinced him to restore the worship of Amun and the old gods. He also moved the capital back to Thebes, abandoning the city his parents had built. And if you like learning all this so far, make sure to like this video and hit that subscribe button for more content like this. Tutankhamun's successors, especially Horemheb, were pretty thorough in erasing Akhenaten and Nefertiti's legacy. They demolished their constructions and reused the materials for their own projects. Despite their efforts, Akhenaten and Nefertiti remain two of the most notable figures in ancient Egyptian history. In 1912, a German archaeological team led by Ludwig Borchardt discovered the famous bust of Nefertiti at the ruins of a workshop in Amarna. This bust, now housed in the newest museum in Berlin, became quickly an international icon of beauty and power. Even Adolf Hitler admired it, calling it a unique masterpiece. One of the biggest mysteries still surrounding Nefertiti is the location of her tomb. Many Egyptologists believe that finding her tomb would be the most significant discovery, since Howard Carter unearthed Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922. Her incredible beauty and influence have captivated the world, making her one of the most legendary figures of the ancient world. Nefertiti wasn't just about politics and religion. She also had a huge impact on Egyptian art. During her time, the Amarna art style emerged, which was a big shift from the stiff, formal depictions of earlier times. This new style showed the royal family in more natural and relaxed settings, making the artwork from this period stand out and be easily recognizable today. But Nefertiti's power wasn't only symbolic. She was often shown doing things usually reserved for the pharaoh, like smiting enemies and leading religious ceremonies. These depictions highlight her significant role in governing Egypt and her influence as a female leader. If you enjoyed this dive into Nefertiti's history, make sure to click on the next one for more content like this.